So I want to kind of lead off by talking about a recent event that happened at one of Kalamazoo's Houseless encampments. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a couple of encampments that have popped up for houseless folks over the winter. There's a really big one over by Mills, I believe. Uh, and we last week we actually had a segment from a friend of the show, Ewan Simpson, who went and did some interviews down at the encampments, talking about some of the underlying issues. Talking to them straight about like what houseless people in the community want. Now, since that show broadcast, there was an accident at one of the larger encampments. There was an explosion. Basically, a propane tank that wasn't secured properly. Basically, that everyone up on lit up a tent on a very cold night. Now, luckily, no one was injured, but some houseless folks' stuff did end up going up in smoke in a very sad, tragic way. As of right now, a lot of people have come to offer assistance and help. I wanted to actually read from a friend of mine. They do a lot of work in the houseless community here in Kalamazoo. And they have this really important take on it that I think we should really all take to heart. And I'll expand a little bit on it, but their perspective on this is critical. And they say the area along the Kalamazoo River has long been home to many of the Kalamazoo's houseless. The heavy pollution of the paper industry, the Enbridge oil spill, and failed infrastructure projects have left large swaths of shoreline undeveloped. Small forests and empty fields are utilized by many people looking for a private place to sleep and store their belongings. But the city and the police have been kicking many out of their chosen camps and moving them to the one we saw, reported on in various news outlets, Channel 3 with TV8, etc. Lots of people do not want to move. They've created homes where they were at and had established resources and routines. Many people choose to live where they live for a reason, be it for privacy, for their safety, to avoid periodical flooding, or because the tree line blocks the cold wind. Some people who are unaccustomed to sleeping outdoors suddenly find themselves unsure of what to do or where to go and find themselves stuck at Tent City. At the time of that accident, the gospel mission was housing only 40 families due to renovation, midwinter homeless shelter renovation. The only half solution proposed by the city is the purchase of the Knights Inn, where they promise to house people over the winter only to kick them out in the spring to renovate the property into these affordable apartments, which, as we talked about on a previous episode, is a good thing, but we've heard this before. The fact that so many people are sleeping outside tonight in Kalamazoo is cruel and dangerous, but forcing them all into one camp is crueler and more dangerous still. The increased visibility of this camp has also meant an outpouring of aid work by volunteers and Good Samaritans. This inadvertently takes pressure off of the city to provide material support for the camp. However, the aid going to the camps is often done without thorough thinking and afterthoughts. Talking about like kind of coordination here. There's boxes of rotten food are left everywhere. Good clothing is strewn across the ground. Things people actually asked for are unaccounted for or lost. A few weeks ago, about 70 little buddy heaters were purchased using money from a popular GoFundMe circulating on Facebook. They were distributed to just about every tent in every large encampment left at the time. While the safety of using any heater in a tent is questionable, these models would provide the most safety possible given the circumstances. These heaters use the small 1-pound propane tanks, which still only last about 5 hours each. The canisters are difficult to find in local stores due to high demand. Because of the huge increase in heaters and relative inaccessibility of 1-pound tanks, many people started filling their 1-pound tanks themselves using larger tanks. This process can be very dangerous, especially in close quarters and without the proper equipment to do so. And that is what caused the incidents that we all heard about last week. Someone was just trying to keep themselves and their family warm while sleeping outdoors in 20-degree weather. Thankfully, no one was seriously injured, but they once again lost their belongings. This is 100% the fault of the city government, who refused to invest in solutions for houselessness while leaning on well-meaning housed people to render aid using their limited resources. We cannot continue to put band-aids on the wound. There are hundreds of people in Kalamazoo sleeping outside tonight. It's been particularly cold this week. We've had a fairly mild winter, but we've had 15, 20, 10-degree nights with wind chill. While hundreds more properties sit empty. The city has money to build courthouses and stadiums, luxury apartments, and shopping centers, but can't fund a new shelter, or even better, actual housing. The housing millage has passed, but where is that money going to go? Nonprofits that do more harm than good, temporary solutions that are just capitalist developments in disguise. Enough is enough. And again, that was from a colleague, Carrie Singer, who does a lot of work with houseless residents here in the city. And really just, that is a spot on, pitch perfect analysis of what we've got going on here. I would want to remind my listeners, Kalamazoo is not a poor town. You've heard me speak ad nauseum, Foundation for Excellence. We've got more billionaires per capita than many, many cities. It's kind of weird. I often joke Kalamazoo is a small enough city where you know most of your neighbors, but large enough to be controlled by a handful of billionaire oligarchs. But you look at what's been going on since the foundation passed in 2015. All of this development downtown. Seems like every year there's more stuff being built up. A new hotel, this event center that they're talking about pushing. Southwest Michigan First, Ron Kitchens, all those folks to compete with Van Andel. And we've talked about on the show before why that's a bad idea. I won't go into that now, but the bottom line is this city is abundant with resources and empty properties, as has been pointed out. Now, go back in time, talk about the houseless resistance camp that was going on in Bronson Park about 2 years ago. There were people with concrete ideas and concrete plans. There was an individual who talked about buying up a derelict nursing home and renovating it into affordable apartments in a very quick way. You could get this done for the winter. The city was hesitant. They sat on their hands. And I don't think it's unfair to think that there's a certain amount of NIMBYism involved here with the houseless issue, that as humanitarian or whatnot, as the city purports to be, there are not these quick solutions baked in. There's not, especially we talked, we did an interview several months ago with Michael Reiser. And he was one of the organizers back when they were doing the Bronson Park encampment. One of the things he brought up was like, this is COVID-19 year. This is a year where it's particularly difficult to even do the shelter system, which again was very inadequate. And we've talked before about the issues with the gospel mission in particular. But there has not been a holistic solution from the city to address this problem. They're always kicking the can to other entities. Well, we've got this, Mothers of Hope building these tiny houses, or this other project is building up affordable housing, or just everyday people are bringing supplies and porta potties and stuff to these camps, which as my colleague pointed out, is they're basically outsourcing people's goodwill in order to basically absolve themselves of responsibility. That's not an accident. The people who fundamentally control the financial levers of this city, they do not want to bring about these solutions to houselessness, because however liberal friendly you want to be, there are forces at work that would like to see Kalamazoo be gentrified, that would like to see Kalamazoo not become a hub for these people. I've literally listened to people make arguments that if we had really good programs and affordable housing and free housing for the houseless, then it would attract houseless people from all over the region. Oh, and like, oh no, how terrible that would be. People coming to our city for opportunities, for a place to live. And as I've mentioned before, this is a problem that's only going to get worse as the economy drags, and especially decades out, looking at how climate change is going to affect our region. People are going to be flocking, particularly to Kalamazoo. If we don't get a handle on how to handle this humanely now, and if we can't force our municipal government to do it, then it is going to be a complete show as this keeps perpetuating. And let's not forget that it is only because we live under this capitalist system and we're forced to play under this playbook. It is absurd. There are so many empty structures and there's so many empty houses. Just off the top of my head, I remember when reporting on this 2 years ago, it's something like 8 empty houses for every houseless resident in Kalamazoo. You're telling me we can't do anything with that? You're telling me that that's just unfeasible? It's completely feasible. It's just they don't want to put the resources into that because they would much rather the houseless problem just magically go away. It's not going to go away. It's only going to get more intense. And if our city doesn't get a handle on it now, then our solutions to the houselessness problem are just going to get more and more pathetic and oblique and not able to meet the demands of where we're at. That whole argument, like, if we have good programs, good housing for the houseless, that's just going to make them flock. They're going to flock here anyway. Read the tea leaves, for God's sakes. Especially like when parts of this country are no longer livable, where else are they going to go? The climate of our region is projected in about 50 years to resemble that of Georgia. There's going to be some places too hot to live, some places too cold to live. We're the Goldilocks zone, folks. And if we do not prepare ourselves for that now, what is the future going to look like? So, this is the moment where I tell you how to get involved. There's great groups on the ground doing this work. Food Not Bombs comes to mind. But I think we're also approaching a moment where we need to start putting a lot of pressure on the city to really address this problem. Because again, there's these quick fixes over the years. And again, we shouldn't dismiss that some things have gotten better, but it's not enough. It is just it is not enough. And until the city is willing to bring the resources it has to bear to address this problem, then we, the people, need to lay the pressure on thick and keep laying it on.